point of World Book Night is that for 1 hour from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. British Standard Time, you are supposed to embrace reading. They encourage you to read aloud with your kids, to get online and share hashtags of what you're reading, or to take part with a reading group. Now, I'm not going to be doing any of those things, but I do want to maybe spend tonight really focusing on some reading. The thing is though, I want to feel like tonight the reading I do stands out on its own. I don't just want to make progress on one of my Aurelian books. And I did debate just picking up a novella and reading that, but then I got to thinking about the Our Fantasy bingo board, and the prompt that I struggle with every year, or that I just don't enjoy every year, is the 5 short stories. Now technically World Book Night's reading hour is obviously 1 hour, but since I'm going to extend that anyway, I thought that what I would do is pick up an anthology and read 5 randomly selected stories from that anthology tonight. It'll tick off a square for me on the Our Fantasy bingo board. It won't add another big chunky book to my TBR that I feel like I need to complete by the end of the month while I'm working on everything else. And it'll feel like its own little unique entity rather than part of my general April reading. If you watched my Our Fantasy bingo board TBR that came out literally less than a month ago, then you'll know that for this square I said I plan to read Naomi Novik's Buried Deep anthology. And less than a month in, we're gonna change that because why not? I love a TBR, but I won't be contained by a TBR. So yeah, like 3 weeks after setting that year-long TBR, I'm gonna make my first change. What I'm gonna pick up instead is actually a mixed author anthology that I have been eyeing up for a while. This is I Want That Twink Obliterated, edited by Galey, Robert Berg and C.L. McCartney. This has 17 stories from a mixture of authors. A couple I have heard from, one I have read from before, a couple whose names I vaguely recognise, and a whole host that are completely new to me. These are all stories that centre queer characters in pulp science fiction or fantasy. As the back of the book says, these are all stories that are designed to push the boundaries of excess, masculinity and good taste. I've put all 17 stories onto a spinner wheel, and over the course of tonight I am going to keep spinning it until I've read 5 short stories. At some point I'm also going to dig out the books I got at my last library sale. I talked about that a little bit in my Aurelium all-nighter vlog, where our library was doing 5 for a pound and I got nearly 50 books. They're not all for me, but I will at some point in this video grab them out and let you see what I got. So for that first spin, I got Dusk and Dawn at the Grand Bazaar by Berkeley, an author I've never heard of. The short story was fine. It was good. It was well written. It maybe wasn't the start I wanted to the vlog. We are following a courier who is trying to deliver a crystal across the galaxy. He stops off at a Mars colony and seeks sanctuary in this Grand Bazaar. I loved the setting. That was definitely the strength of this story, was that setting, the Grand Bazaar, the marketplace, and I had a really good time immersing myself. I just wanted more from the short story, which quite often is my problem with short stories, that I want more. I want to spend longer there. I want the plot to be expanded on. So take that with a pinch of salt. I really enjoyed that kind of the wretched hive of scum and villainy type of market, and getting to see some of the different kind of factions at play as our protagonist tries to survive the time he's there. It was fun, but it really did just feel like a long action scene rather than a story with a real plot line with characters that I really wanted to get to know. The action scene was brilliantly done, but it did just feel like one long chase. So not my favourite, not the best start, but we're continuing on. The next spin gave me Ganymede by Anthony Oliveria, and this one, at first I was like, ooh, because it's the longest short story in the anthology if you go by page count. But I was interested. I've definitely heard of the author, never read but heard of, and then in the editor's introduction, which I did read on its own before I started, they mentioned that Anthony Oliveria is actually the person who kind of took the I want that Twink obliterated from an internet meme and put it into a Marvel comic, so really kind of mainstreamed the phrase, the internet meme culture thing. And so it made sense to read his story, definitely. When I jumped to the short story, at first I had a moment of excitement. At first I had a moment of relief because although it's by far the longest short story, I was like, oh, it's written as a transcript. So actually not as long as I think. But I was wrong. It was not a transcript. It's actually a choose your own adventure. And I loved them as a kid, loved Goosebumps choose your own adventures. As an adult, I don't like them because I feel like I'm missing out from parts of the story. This one I did read a couple of times, so I think I read most of the options, but I don't like choose your own adventures. I don't like them as big, which is annoying because actually I think I would have really enjoyed this story if it had just been written in prose. We enter into a world where, you know, dystopian hellscapes happened and the wealthy and the beautiful, the elites, left Earth on a spaceship. Earth gradually has rebuilt itself and now they have come back. And we are following a young orphan whose family have been murdered by these elites, and he's been scooped up and is being, I think, kind of bred or trained into someone that can work their machinery. I don't want to give too much away because after that point the story starts to go in different places, but I definitely could have really enjoyed the story. It is about searching for lost love. It is about, you know, fighting on in the face of overwhelming odds. I could have had a really good time with it. It was fine. It was okay. Like I said, I personally don't like a choose your own adventure because I always feel like I am not performing for the page, but I don't really feel like you sink into the story because I'm always aware that I've just made a choice. I kind of feel like I need to keep my finger on that page in case the choice I've made is going to end the story so I can jump back and go with the other option. It's probably closer to a game than a reading experience, and I'm not a big fan of games. Other people will really enjoy how unique the format of it is, but for me that negatively affected my enjoyment, and I would have just preferred to have it be laid out as prose. It also was quite a convoluted concept, and I think that maybe also to me didn't lend itself to the choose your own adventure. Again, I think that would have been clearer in a prose story. But I do admire what Oliveria did here. I do admire the complexity it must take to plot one of these stories, to have your different options all kind of muddled together and make sure that every plot line leads in a kind of proper story itself. It just didn't work for me personally as a reader. The last of these initial spins was Yesterday's Hero by Charlie Winter, and this is where this one of the three I've read so far, this is the winner for me. Never heard of the author, never read the author, but this is the best story in my opinion so far. It does probably help that this is the first story that is fantasy rather than science fiction, and I'm definitely a fantasy rather than a science fiction reader, so that might be playing a part, but I really like this one. Our protagonist is a retired hero. It is his birthday and his son doesn't turn up. So he goes off to find out what's happened to him, and he goes to the Dark Wizard's tower in search of his grown son. Our Dark Wizard is also retired, and it's their kid. Like, so then our retired hero and our retired Dark Wizard go off in search together to find their son and find out what's happened to him. Had a really bittersweet feel to it. There was a lot here about like the things you sacrifice, but making choices for your children that are maybe not the choices they would make. There was a lot here about legacy and maybe about missed opportunity. It was beautifully done, and I think it said a lot about parents and children and futures. It gave me very much Terry Pratchett feel to it, but more in a Conan style. Where I know some of Terry Pratchett's books are essentially parodies of Conan and the kind of sword and sandal stories, so it's maybe a bit thingy to say to combine that with it, but it was just not quite maybe as comedic as Pratchett, but it had some elements of that, but maybe in a more directly Conan the Barbarian type world. Okay. Maybe something like Caitlin Rosakis's Dreadful, in that vein, where we're like coming in at the Dark Wizard and then you go, ah, there's a pulling the rug out from under you, he's not as evil as you thought. And I really liked that we also had those two older protagonists in this, two men that are reaching the end of their lives and are looking back at what they've achieved. I thought this one was really good, and I would look up Charlie Winter's writing going forward. I still have time to read another two, so I'm gonna spin the wheel again. And first I will go through, we'll spin the wheel now, and then I will show you that library book haul, and then I'll come back and talk to you about the last two short stories. And maybe pick a favourite? I don't know, we'll maybe pick a favourite. I went to our library's book sale on Saturday and did a bit of damage. Not all of them were for me. A few of them, a decent amount of them were for me, but not all of them were for me. So really quickly, I'm just going to fire you through the ones that I bought for myself. I got these two, Death on the Trans-Siberian Express and Blood on the Siberian Snow. Both of them are by C.J. Farrington, and they are apparently Olga Pushkin mysteries. I've never read this series, I've never read from this author before, but I do like the sound of them. The setting is a bit different than anything I've read before. I don't actually know if either of them is the first book in the series. This one might be, because it doesn't say the series title on it the way this one does. But either way, even if they're not, I'll give them a try. Then I got another two books in a new author, new series to me. Again, I don't know if these are the first two or if they come later, so we're gonna have to just have a try. But we've got Don't Cry for Me, Aberystwyth, and Last Tango in Aberystwyth. Both are Louis Night Mysteries by Malcolm Price. These are obviously both set in Wales, which I don't see enough of. They're kind of detective, noir, hard-boiled mysteries, which again isn't usually my thing, but I could be tempted. And most interestingly, I have heard that these were originally written in Welsh and have been translated. So at some point that is going to be like really useful for me for some kind of bingo or challenge. And I think they're going to look good on the shelf. Another two books in a mystery series that I've not read the author or the series before. We have Danny Gliver and A Spot of Trouble, and Danny Gliver and The Reek of Red Herrings. Both are by Katrina McPherson. These I think are period mysteries, maybe the 1930s. This one I think at a castle, this one I think in a fishing village, and are by a Scottish author who apparently is from a town that's not that far from me, so I'd like to give them a try. On to fantasy, and I picked up The Emperor's Blades by Brian Staveley. This one is the first in the series, but I don't know anything about it. I just thought the summary on the back sounded quite good. The Emperor has been murdered. Murder mystery. Leaving the Anarian Empire in turmoil, his progeny must prepare to unmask a conspiracy. His son, training for the Emperor's deadliest fighting force, hears the news of an ocean away. Several accidents and a dying soldier's warning, he realises life is also in danger. The Emperor's daughter hunts her father's murderer in the capital. Court politics can be fatal, but she needs justice. So this has a fantasy world. Sounds like a murder mystery. It sounds like a lot of courtly politics and intrigue. So both those things are absolutely perfect for me and would fit actually multiple options on the Our Fantasy Bingo this year. So a male writer in my fantasy novels. Who am I? What am I doing? You better not disappoint me, Brian. But we're gonna give him a go. Then I got myself Her Radiant Curse by Elizabeth Lim. As far as I'm aware, this is a standalone spin-off. So it is set in the same world as Six Crimson Cranes, which I've not read. But I don't think it matters. Correct me if I'm wrong. It says one sister must fall for the other to rise. It sounds really good. I've liked Elizabeth Lim's Spin the Dawn duology, so this could be fun. Bit of a lighter book, but look how stunning it is. It's really, really pretty. Then we have City of Nightmares by Rebecca Schaeffer. I know absolutely nothing about this one. I remember seeing it around. I remember when it came out, it did get quite a lot of hype. It's at the time, I think I did read the summary and wasn't interested, but when it was going for 20p, then my standards are lower. Ever since her sister became a man-eating spider and slaughtered her way through the town, 19-year-old Ness has been terrified. Yeah, you would be. Terrified of some other nightmare murdering her, terrified of ending up like her sister. Because in Newham, the city never sleeps. Dreaming means waking up is your worst fear. Yeah, could be good. And then I have what is quite frankly my crowning glory, my piece de resistance. The Ninth Reign by Jen Williams, I have been seeing everywhere. Everyone that has kind of similar fantasy taste to me raves about this book. Everyone that doesn't have similar fantasy taste to me raves about this book. I think I might have actually had this copy out of the library at one point and didn't get to it, but I need to read this because I've not heard a single bad thing about it. It is chunky, but I think it's a fantasy dystopian, which that's probably why I've not read it, is the dystopian angle is not for me usually, but this one, apparently impeccable. So I got The Ninth Reign. I also got The Bitter Twins, book 2. If anything, even chunkier, but again, so pretty. And then The Poison Song, book 3. And that might not sound crazy, but considering there must have been thousands of books in that library sale, and they were all spotted from throughout different series, like the mysteries, I obviously picked up whatever they come in the series. To have a complete finished series available to buy was unprecedented, and I got it. And also, this has been on my TBR for so long, so very, very proud of myself. And then I think that's maybe, what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 books that are for me. So out of 45, that's actually not bad. I done better than I thought. Okay. The problem with filming at this time of night is trying to get, not get the glare on my glasses. But I've read my last 2 short stories in I Want That Twink Obliterated. I really like, I don't know what these are called on a paperback, these little flappy things, but I really like them. I don't know what they are. The book also nicely has like a content notes at the end, which is essentially trigger warnings for each short story, which again, it's a really nicely put together book. So I read Your World Against Mine by Adam Sass, who I've not read from. Just there's only one author in this book I have read from. It was unlikely that I was going to get them, but I've not read, but I have definitely heard of Adam Sass, which means there would be other books I could look up. Your World Against Mine is it's quirky. Exiled prince in space in his kind of 40s, and he is contacted by the dozens of 20-year-old clones of himself he's made on this planet as a famine approaches. It's not graphic, it was kind of done for fun, but yeah, you get like lots of clone incest and a little bit, I guess, of the looking as an older version of yourself with jealousy and regret at what the younger versions of yourself could still achieve in this world, and I guess might have achieved if you're looking back on your own life. I want to say it was, you know, deep and meaningful, and there probably were some deep and meaningful kind of thoughts there. He's been ruling this kingdom for 20 years, but he landed on this planet entirely on his own, and all he had was a machine that could make clones. So for every aspect of life, from food to his subjects, everything, they're all clones of himself, which he's not doing great. And then due to this famine, a rescue ship is on the horizon, ready to arrive, and we see how that spurs both him and the clones into action. It was good. It was definitely, it was interesting. I still think I prefer the retired hero story, but I did like it. And then the last one that I got was The Dearth of Temptation by Christopher Caldwell, another author I've never read. And I really like this one. I would have read this, I think, as a full story, like a full, maybe a novella rather than a novel, but definitely I could have read it as longer than a short story. We are following a visiting dignitary as he visits the electress of this city or country, whatever, on the day that their goddess is going to be claiming a nubile young man from their people as a sacrifice. And the goddess claims someone that the electress does not want claimed, so she asks this representative to go and treat with the goddess to change her mind, to get her someone else. I really, really liked this one. It was full of politicky, religion-y, world-building stuff that I love. It had all that kind of intrigue to it. I would have liked more, see more of the differences between the electress and this visiting dignitary. They're different, you know, who they were representing, maybe more playing of the political game there. I really liked the kind of male harem that the electress is overseeing, is running. I would have liked to have seen, again, more of the society that she's overseeing. I would have liked to know more about this yearly tribute. Is it doing anything? Is it something that has just become rote for this society? There was a lot here that I think was really interesting. It gave you parts of a quest storyline, parts there was a little smidge of romance going on. The aesthetics were really kind of beautifully painted. Definitely the writing was very, very good on this one. It was the most city fantasy book or story of the batch. The Yesterday's Heroes had that kind of forest quest fantasy feel to it. The other three were all very much space themed, and this one was that more city based fantasy. If I had guessed and you told me that those were the kind of themes of each short story, I would have guessed that the city based fantasy would be my favourite. And I'm not surprised that it is, but also I did really enjoy it. It's exactly my thing. So I'm definitely going to keep an eye on Christopher Caldwell as an author going forward. All that said though, I didn't not enjoy any of the stories I read. They all did something unique, and I'm very interested to read the rest of the stories in the book. So there's lots going on in this anthology, and the introduction was really, really interesting. The editors talk about pulp as a genre. They say how pulp style emerged in the short fiction magazines of the early 20th century, so named for the cheap pulp paper they were printed on. The term rapidly became synonymous with stories that were lurid, thrilling, sensationalist, formulaic, of popular appeal, sometimes questionable in quality, and above all fun. But they do also say that, full disclosure, they were often sexist, racist, homophobic, etc. And they make a point that a lot of the books in this are trying to look at pulp with a new, modern, more inclusive eye. And I am looking forward to continuing the rest of the book, which for short stories, for a short story anthology, I don't know the last time I read a short story anthology. I genuinely don't. And this one I think might be a good one. So I will probably not update this with the rest of them because I don't know when I'm gonna get to them, but by this time next year, I will probably maybe do our fantasy bingo board wrap up, and I will talk about this as a more whole, as a more of a package in that. So, you know, subscribe if you want to see that in 11 months time. Other than that, let me know if any of the stories that I've talked about in here interest you. I know they're short stories, so I've tried not to give too much detail because really they're spoilers as soon as you start almost. You can't get very far before you're in spoiler territory. But let me know if the anthology as a whole interests you, and let me know if there were any books in that library haul that I should be prioritizing. Leave me some kind of spaceship, spaceman, if you've got nothing else you want to tell me, and I really hope that I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.